Well, hello, Instagram and Facebook friends. This is Dr. Nushin Darvish coming to you live from Holistic Naturopathic Medical Center here in Bellevue, Washington. And it's time to take some time to reflect upon the season of autumn that we have just entered since middle of this week. So the autumn equinox was September 22nd, and that really signals the coming of a whole new transitory season in our life here in the Northwest, at least at the Northern Hemisphere. And it's a signal for us to really look at what can we do to improve our health and well-being. So this is a transitional season, which means that basically it's a perfect time for us to look into detoxification and drainage. And some of you may wonder, what is drainage? And we talk a lot about detoxification most of the time and hear about that word, but what is specifically detoxification? Because I see once in a while on posts and different things from different professionals saying, where does detoxification happen in the first place? What is it? Does it even exist? Yes, it does exist, and it is a biochemical process. But more important than that is the drainage, and we'll get into that in just a few minutes. But I wanted to just reflect upon this whole concept of autumn and how the cycles within nature give us a gift, really, to reflect and clear out some things that we may have been building upon in the last 6 months. So this season of autumn is really a season of letting go, of detoxification emotionally, mentally, and physically. So, you look around, these trees in the Northwest are just absolutely beautiful at this time of the year. They're turning color. You drive down some of the streets, and it's just magnificent with the multicolor. The air is turning crisp. The rain is falling today. And this is all signaling a time for us to come gradually inward and create balance within our system. It's a perfect time, especially this week because of the equinox, to create balance within ourselves and the outside world surrounding us. So I want to make sure that everybody is aware that this is just for informational purposes only, and that I'm not promoting any specific cure or treatment for any conditions that you may have. So please see your providers for more specifics. But let's talk about this season of cleansing. This is a time to cleanse the body, the mind, and the spirit. And we get into this concept of detoxification, which is really, like I said earlier, a biochemical process that occurs mainly in the liver, but to some extent in the colon and even the brain. And we forget that the brain has actually mechanisms in place to help the chemicals and the toxins detoxify. So there's 3 phases of detoxification. There is phase 1 and 2, biochemically, that mostly happens in the liver, some in the brain, like I said, and some in the kidneys, but mostly in the liver. And then there is phase 3 that happens in the intestines and the colon. So the first phase 1, is what we call the transformational phase. It is when chemicals, including hormones, including estrogens, pesticides, medications, all of these toxins that we have taken in somehow, whether it's through our skin, through breathing, through eating, through any kind of exposure, inhaling, all of those toxins have to become more water soluble. And that is what happens in the phase 1 of the liver detoxification. It becomes more water soluble by the chemical changes that are happening within that liver with these toxins. And with the way we detoxify in phase 1 really is also dependent on what we call genetic polymorphism. In other words, we all have genes that regulate some of these detoxification pathways in our liver and kidneys and so forth. And some of these genes can become mutated, or we may be born with variations in these genes which can regulate the way we detox. And so some people are going to be more likely to be able to detoxify and make those toxic chemicals that we're exposed to more water soluble a lot easier in their liver than somebody else who has a different variation of genes, and the impact and the effect it has on that process of stage 1 or phase 1 detoxification. So phase 1, I want to give you some concrete stuff that you can do, at least understand about phase 1 in your lifestyle. So food is really important for all of these stages. Well, avoidance is number 1, right? So we want to avoid chemicals. We want to avoid toxins that may act or behave like xenoestrogens. Those are, for instance, from pesticides and many plastics that also carry those. So we want to minimize exposure to as much chemicals as we can. But things like green tea, black tea, grapes, non-GMO organic soy, and cruciferous vegetables are like broccoli, arugula, my favorite, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale. All of these cruciferous vegetables are really powerful in helping us detoxify during phase 1 detoxification. So in other words, they're involved with helping optimize the toxins that we get into more of a water soluble substance so that your liver can eliminate it. Now, the interesting thing is that if you have a gene mutation that is overactive, you may not do so well with high doses of some of these foods, and you may need like celery or rooibos tea to help calm down that overactivity in that gene. On the other hand, if you're underactive, if you have a gene that is underactive with detoxification of phase 1, then you're going to need more of the cruciferous vegetables, the soy, and the green teas and so forth. So it is really dependent in some cases on the exposure of the chemicals as well as the genetic variation that you may have personally in order to optimize phase 1 detoxification. And this is something we look at very seriously here, especially with chronic illnesses, because we want to home in, really target the way your body is detoxifying. Hi guys, by the way, welcome. Thanks for joining in. So phase 1 of the other foods that's really good for that under-functioning kind of a phase 1 activity is berries, like raspberries and blueberries. All the berries are really awesome. Things like curcumin, which is the extract of turmeric, garlic is awesome. Fish oil, rosemary is one of my favorites to help the detoxification pathway of phase 1 during toxicity or hormonal imbalances. Things like good proteins like that come from wild salmon and trout can also be really, really powerful with helping you during phase 1 detox. Now, once your body's made this into a water-soluble product, and I want to make an analogy here so that you really get it, okay? So phase 1 is like cleaning out the cupboards. You're cleaning out all that stuff that has just packed into the drawers, your junk drawer, whatever. You're cleaning that up. Phase 2 is when you're bagging it up, packing them up, okay? And phase 3 basically is putting them on a trolley and sending them out the door. So phase 2 also happens in the liver, and it is what we call the conjugation activity of the liver biochemically, which basically again is determined or impacted by the genetic variations of your system. And so if you have hormonal imbalances, a lot of times phase 2 detoxification needs to be optimized. I know there's a question about berries from Trader Joe's, just got them frozen. So one thing to keep in mind is that frozen berries, as long as they're organic and good quality, they have a higher antioxidant power than regular room temperature berries do. So try to get them frozen, which is going to be much better for you. So phase 2 detoxification is when we're bagging these toxins up and sending them out. And that phase 2 is optimized again with foods like garlic, with resveratrol, which is super duper antioxidant that you hear about lots sometimes coming from grapes. Citrus fruit, especially organic, can also help phase 2. Grapefruit is one of the best known phase 2 activating kind of a fruit that you often have to be careful of when you're taking medication, because it can really detox that medication and then you're left with not much medication activity in your system. So you have to be careful with some of these foods if you're on any prescription drugs. Rosemary, like I mentioned earlier, for phase 1 is also fantastic for phase 2. And pomegranate, which is in season right now. We're just at the beginning of the season of pomegranate, one of my favorite fruit. And it's fantastic for phase 2 detoxification, for hormone balancing, especially with the estrogen toxicity that many of us face, and for men, especially with prostate issues, because again, it's helping balance that those hormones. Roasted coffee, as long as you're drinking organic, mycotoxin, mold-free coffee, that can be very beneficial in helping you with phase 2. Spices like curcumin are again really powerful. Cumin is also really powerful at this time. Mung beans. Mung beans are fantastic. Mung beans are the little tiny green beans that are often forgotten about, but they're very easy to cook, very easy to digest, and they provide the right nutrients and proteins to allow your liver to detoxify phase 2 activity. And again, lots and lots of veggies are really important during phase 2. Celery, cucumbers, potatoes, spinach, oranges, apples, carrots, alfalfa, sprouts, all of that is very, very important for phase 2. The other one that we often forget is a high-fat diet, not a meat diet, but a high-fat plant-based diet. So things like avocado and avocado oil, coconut oil, ghee, all of those good quality fats, wild salmon, those good quality fats really help the liver detoxify during phase 2. So again, they become really important if you are trying to balance your hormones. Now, during phase 2, as with phase 1, a lot of nutrients are involved, and magnesium, for instance, is a very important nutrient for majority of the phases of detoxification. Selenium is another one. These are minerals that act in many parts of the body. Selenium you can eat from Brazil nuts. Lamb and eggs are very high in it as well. Magnesium are high in nuts and seeds and whole grains and beans. Cysteine is very, very important as well. By the way, it's during phase 2 that you hear a lot about these words of methylation, glucuronidation, sulfuration, all of these, glutathione, the word glutathione, these are all processes that are involved with phase 2 activity. So something like cysteine, which is an amino acid, becomes vital for proper function of phase 2 activity, bagging those toxins up in the liver. So getting cysteine, and supplement form, we usually get it in the form of N-acetylcysteine, and we can do that intravenously or as an inhalation if you're having direct lung issues, or orally for liver and mucus buildup and detoxification. So cysteine is high in eggs and soybean, but also in spirulina and sesame seeds and oats. So lots of good food, guys, with a lot of these nutrients that are important. Oats are really high in cysteine as well. So oatmeal every morning is going to help that hormone balance. Then we look at other nutrients like glycine and folic acid and alpha lipoic acid as well, which are again vital in supporting the phase 2 detoxification. So one of the things we do here at Holistic is, actually at the Holistic IV Lounge, our doctors, Dr. Marion and myself, have created formulas, intravenous formulas that support some of these detoxification pathways or in combination. And so they're specifically formulated to help detoxify the phase 1 and phase 2 pathways of the liver. And by the way, these phases also, like I mentioned earlier, do work in the brain as well. So when you're deficient or having an issue, or we find it in a laboratory test with phase 2 detoxification problems, then you know that that is also impacting the brain well-being. So we want to definitely work on helping that. What's interesting is that they're finding that detoxification is also impacted by gender and body weight. Okay, so in other words, the glutathione activity is increased with cruciferous vegetables and garlic in women more than it is in men. So when women eat more garlic, more cruciferous vegetables, it's going to be much more beneficial in detoxifying the estrogens. It's not that it's not going to be helpful in men, but it just has an extra power for women, which is awesome to know about. There is the COMT enzyme, which is part of the methylation pathway, and sometimes you hear that, the COMT pathway in our bodies, especially again in the liver, that is specifically involved with estrogen detoxification. And the COMT is typically one of the main ones that is mutated, or there's a variation in that enzyme that can increase one's risk to breast cancer or hormone-related cancers. It is also an enzyme that is inhibited by high sucrose diet. So a lot of sugar in the diet can actually inhibit your COMT pathway in the liver. That COMT enzyme also requires vitamin B6 and 12 and folic acid and methionine to help detoxify the estrogen. So if you're not getting enough of those nutrients, or if you're low, you're going to be more likely having a harder time letting go of the toxicity of the estrogen in your system. Now we come to the final phase of detoxification in our system on the biochemical perspective, and that is phase 3. So phase 3 is what we call the excretory phase, because it is the phase that gets all these toxins actually out, typically through the urine, the kidneys, as well as the colon. And so making sure that we have a high fiber diet is going to be vital for elimination of these toxins that we've worked so hard to detoxify and bind and change during the phase 1 and phase 2 processes of the liver. This is where bile is really important, and this is one of the reasons why high-fat diet is a good high-fat diet can be very beneficial to detoxification, is because it stimulates the release of bile, and bile is vital in stimulating the peristalsis of the colon and getting those toxins out. But other things that actually improve bile flow and the elimination process through the intestines are things like yarrow, artichoke, cumin, ginger, and garlic. So get those into your diet on a daily basis. Ginger, garlic, cumin, yarrow as a tea is awesome. Making sure that we have enough soluble fiber as well as insoluble fiber. The insoluble fiber are usually the grains in the fruit, and soluble fiber are things like chlorella and flaxseed. Now, probiotics become really, really helpful as well with phase 3 detoxification, but I often like to think of probiotics that we get naturally from food. So looking into cultured vegetables such as sauerkraut and kimchi, looking at kefir and Greek yogurt, plant-based, as well as dairy grass-fed, high 100% grass-fed. Greek yogurt is awesome as well. So there's a lot of different food-based probiotics that you can get that I encourage my patients to eat to support that phase 3 detoxification. So one of the other things that we do here, besides the IV therapy, the detox IV that we have formulated along with the glutathione intravenously and vitamin B12 and B6 and B complex, to support your whole phase 1 and phase 2, is we do something called ozone therapy. And if you haven't heard enough about ozone the last few lectures or lives, I'm going to share with you again. The rectal ozone is actually very, very powerful in stimulating the liver to detoxify in phase 2 especially, and then it stimulates the colon to do its phase 3. So ozone therapy is really powerful for hormone balancing as a result, because it is stimulating the detoxification of phase 2 and 3 of the liver and the colon. Ionic foot baths. You've seen those baths that look really funny with changes of colors. People sometimes say, does that really work? It actually is a science behind all of that. It's called Iontophoresis. And the concept is basically that if you charge up the water electrically to a positive charge, it will attract the negative charges in your lymphatic system, in your tissues, and help pull them out. And vice versa, if you're using charged water that's negatively charged, it's going to pull out the positively charged substances, whether it's bacteria or infections or heavy metals or what have you. So ionic foot baths are really a wonderful way of helping your body eliminate toxins. And we do something else here called Iontophoresis, which is a biofeedback German system that helps support detoxification and biochemical processes. Now, earlier I mentioned something about drainage, and most of us don't hear the word drainage very much. The way I like to think of it is that, you know, you've cleaned up your kitchen here and now you're left with muddy water in your sink. Unless you pull that plug, you're not going to get the toxins completely draining. So drainage is involving the opening of the pathways, the doors of the emunctories. And the emunctories in our system are your kidneys, your liver, your skin, your lungs, and your colon, your intestines. So sometimes it's actually more important to do drainage versus detoxification. Majority of chronic diseases are because of bogged down or shut down doorways of these major organs that are supposed to release their toxins. We're supposed to sweat. We're supposed to breathe and eliminate toxins through carbon dioxide through our lungs. We're supposed to eliminate through our colon and bladder and urine. But a lot of times, if we're not drinking enough water, or if we're stressed or exposed to a lot of chemicals, or emotionally we're bogged down, it can block these pathways. So it is one of the more important ways of getting those toxins out is to do drainage. And this is very much a European-based therapy. It was developed in Europe, mainly in Germany, and it involves the usage of homeopathic remedies that are put together in combination, and I like to visualize them as entering the cells and working at the cellular level to eliminate the toxins at the cellular level, and then allowing the organs to kind of relax and eliminate through that organ that may be blocked. So opening up those pathways. Drainage is also very important for creating balance and restoration in our system. It's oftentimes when there is fatigue or chronic illness or even acute illness like a virus or allergies, something in our system is blocked up. Some emunctory is blocked up. And there is an imbalance that is created as a result of these emunctories being blocked up. And so then when we do open those emunctories up through drainage remedies, we're actually creating more balance at the cellular level as well as the organ level, and allowing the body to heal itself. So the drainage that you can do with your lifestyle is number one, right? Number one is to actually eliminate as much toxic exposure as possible. That includes electromagnetic fields, chemicals, pesticides, xenoestrogens, plastics. I mean, the list goes on. A lot of us are now aware of that because of education, which is awesome, that we have access to educating ourselves through the internet and discussing these things with professionals and friends that are versed in some of these things. So lifestyle things that you can do for drainage. Number one, hydrate. I like to encourage my patients to drink not only half their weight in ounces, but start their morning off with 1 to 2 glasses or cups of hot water and nothing in it. Okay, drinking hot water will kind of open up all the circulation, get the blood flowing. It helps eliminate all the toxins that you've collected throughout the night, and your body's trying to eliminate that in the morning. So drink your hot water. It can be revolutionary for some. First thing in the morning, before you even brush your teeth, drink your hot water, a couple of cups. Breathing exercises, so many breathing types of exercises out there that you can try. Different types of nasal breathing exercises. One of the more commonly used ones is called 4-7-8, which involves breathing in for 4 minutes, or 4 seconds, not minutes. 4 seconds you breathe in, you hold your breath for 7 seconds, and then slowly breathe it out for 8 seconds. And what this does is it helps calm down that fight and flight response within our body and bring back restoration to our nervous system. So practicing that, especially at times when you're stressed, breathe in for 4 seconds, hold 7 seconds, and 8 out. 4, 7, 8. Nasal breathing from one side to the other is also really beneficial for most of us, because one side is more parasympathetic and the other side is more sympathetic. So as you breathe through the left side, I believe that's more parasympathetic, more calming, and as you breathe in through the right side, it's more activating the sympathetic nervous system. Most of us probably need the parasympathetic to calm us down. Sweating every day. That's the skin, right? That's an emunctory. We need to open that up. So if you don't sweat, you can teach your body to sweat, and it starts off with getting into an infrared sauna. Here in the Pacific, Greater Seattle area, there are places that offer infrared saunas. City Sweats is the one that is pretty well known here, both in Bellevue and in Seattle. I encourage patients to also get their own infrared sauna. You want to make sure it's a clean sauna. The wood is a white wood, a poplar wood that doesn't release chemicals. There's no glues or chemicals in the structure of the sauna, and it's a low EMF. I have one from High Tech Health at home, and I absolutely love it. I think it is one of the best ways to detoxify chemicals, heavy metals, mold toxins, all sorts of things. But you got to get your body to sweat. Epsom salt baths, as long as it's in a clean water, is also beneficial. Castor oil packs that you put over your liver to help stimulate the circulation and the release of the toxins can also be really beneficial. Obviously, being on a high plant-based fiber diet is going to be helpful for elimination, phase 3. And then probiotics, like we mentioned earlier, miso, tempeh, sauerkraut, kimchi, all those great food-based probiotics that help the colon eliminate its toxins. And then lymphatic work, lymph drainage is also very, very helpful for majority of us who have lymphatics bogged down, and that they can get bogged down by heavy metals, by viruses, by molds, by toxins. And so doing dry brushing, which is small strokes using a body brush towards your heart, as well as exercising and walking on a regular basis, to pump the lymphatic system, using a mini trampoline to jump up and down. All of those are really very, very beneficial for getting the lymphatic system to move and to dump its toxins. So biotherapeutic drainage, like I mentioned earlier, is one of the best ways to stimulate the drainage of the cells as well as bring restoration and balance to the organs. And one of my favorite ones is rosemary, which is from the buds of the rosemary plant. And these drainage remedies are made mostly from the buds of plants and then concentrated and treated or diluted, I should say, into homeopathic bases. And then you take them orally as drops. We also kind of sometimes include them in some of the IV therapies that we do here. But rosemary is a wonderful one, like we said, with phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. But I also like it because as a drainage remedy, it helps eliminate the bile release. It's going to be different to get a rosemary drainage remedy than drinking rosemary tea. Rosemary tea is also very beneficial, but it's not going to get into the cells like the rosemary drainage remedies do. Walnut is another one that I use, walnut remedy juglans, which is beneficial for stimulating the release of toxins at the cellular level in the liver and the kidneys. And again, it enhances the detoxification capacity of those organs. Now, bottom line though, guys, is mental and emotional detox. Really, this is the gist of this whole conversation about why we're talking about this during autumn. Because ultimately, our reality is our thoughts, right? What we think of here will impact wellness or it can create disease. And so the way we think can be conducive to creating health and actually even releasing toxins physically on our body. The way we think can be a block to releasing toxins from our body. So it's vital to make sure that we are working on our mental and emotional well-being, and we transform our thoughts and the way we think, because ultimately, as I said earlier, it's going to translate into action. So the way we can do that is, number one, by educating ourselves, right? This is part of our service to the community from Holistic, is educating through these lives, through various webinars, is to providing that free opportunity for people around us in our communities to get educated about what they can do to change their thoughts and change their bodies, and ultimately to create health and well-being, not only for themselves, but for everyone around themselves, around all of us. And so if we think about how important education is, and if we think about how we can regard ourselves as a mine rich in gems, and that education by itself can reveal its treasures and enable us to benefit from it. So think about how powerful education can be. Educate yourself, educate your kids, not only on the physical, but on the emotional and spiritual level as well. This season is a time of letting go. And it first starts with becoming aware of what we're holding, what baggages we're holding emotionally. Declutter your space, declutter your car, declutter your mind, right? Create simplicity. One of the tools that I love to use is meditation and breathing. Like we just mentioned earlier, the breathing, the 4-7-8 is a powerful way to calm that nervous system and as a way to get into meditation. And another technique you can use is to write down stuff on a daily basis, maybe at bedtime or maybe at the first thing in the morning, with the opposite hand. So if you're right-handed, use the non-dominant hand and write these things down. It changes the way your brain chemistry works and the nervous system works. And then finally, practices like yoga can also open up the doors to the mysteries of the of the world. So this is one of the reasons I love meditation so much, is because it is really a door that can lead us to become more aware of the mysteries of the unseen world. It can give us clarity. We can gain our purpose, a sense of purpose. It can help us increase our patience with ourselves and with the people and the families around us, friends around us. It brings us light and it brings us joy. So meditate, guys. And if you don't know how to meditate, pick up an app, a Headspace app or a Calm app, and slowly learn how to meditate. Connect with a friend who knows how to meditate and learn how to meditate. So this is one of the best ways to access what we need to clear, to become aware, is through meditation. And then finally, what I love doing is to pray and read writings from various sacred religions, including Buddhism, Christianity, Zoroastrianism, the Muslim faith, the Baha'i faith, learning from all of them. And as we do that, we learn how all of them are really teaching us one thing, and that one thing is that we need to get closer to the source of our wellness, and we gain more clarity that we are really one people in different forms and shapes and colors. So meditation, prayer, teaches us how to become detached from this physical world and elevate ourselves. And it is one of the best ways of letting go of these toxins, of stimulating the drainage in our body, in our cells, at all levels, at all organs. So with that, I know I've talked a lot, and I hope that this was some kind of a benefit for you. And I thank you for sharing this time with me and giving me a chance to be part of your healing journey. And I welcome you to autumn. Start detoxing and draining, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.